you hardcore boxing fans out there, how are you doing? It's Russ here from Porky's Corner. I hope you're all right and having a nice day. Today I'm joined by my good friend Rico, who started the channel with me in 2017. How are you doing, Rico, pal?
I'm good, thank you. Yourself?
I'm all right. You're working from home today?
Yeah, always. I mean, it's nearly a year since I've been working from home.
Right, I've got some questions in. Do you want to, should we go balls deep straight away?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Right then. Where do you see boxing in next 3 years, Rico? Where do you see it? Where do you see it being? There's a lot of things going on at the moment, isn't there? Where do you see it?
I think it will sort of shrink, so less networks will be interested. I think in general we'll probably have less promoters involved. I don't think Frank Warren can sustain. He's sort of in that period. As a boxing promoter, you need to be ascending or descending. So you either become someone like Kelly Maloney or you become an Eddie Hearn. Being in that middle pack just doesn't work. So I think we probably have Frank out of the business or Frank on top. Matchroom staying on top or just shrinking. I just don't think the money's there that we had since Groves against Froch. I mean, that was the peak of British boxing in recent memory when Froch was at his heights. And now we're sort of in that period where if you remove Joshua out of the sport with the Josh Warrington loss, like, what do we have left? Like, where's the next Joshua coming from? Where's the next pay-per-view star coming from? And that sort of market is declining. The whole boxing market's declining in the UK. I mean, there's no other way to put it. You remove Joshua and Fury, and what do you have left?
You know, all this hype around Joshua and stories that have been spun over years since he's been with Matchroom. I'm not happy with a lot of it. For example, today in the Daily Mirror, there's a story that I don't know if it's a dug up story where Joshua have been talking about wealth a lot. There's a lot, he puts a lot of emphasis on wealth and what he wants. He said he wants to be a billionaire, things like that. Why aim for 100 million when you can get a billion, all that kind of thing. Yeah, I do understand that. But it looks to me now, it's just pure greed. It looks like they might be going for a Fury fight and then WWE. He's like renting his name out for millions of pounds, isn't he? Do you think?
Yeah, but I think, well, look, I think it's the Floyd Mayweatherification of boxing, which is this idea that you sort of cash out at the top and you try and make as lucrative as possible. So there's only very few fighters that love the sport, and I can understand why. It's not an easy career to make, and also people aren't treated very well in the sport. I'm not saying Joshua hasn't been treated well, because he's probably one of the few exceptions that has been treated well because he's a cash cow. So I think a lot of people are in it to get in and out of the sport as quickly as possible and make as much money as possible. I think Joshua's probably at the age where he's now boxed for 10, 11 years, 12 years. He's taken a lot of punishments. He's made a lot of sacrifices. He wants to have his faculties intact. He wants to leave the sport healthy and rich. And more talk about brain injuries, concussion, CTE, everything else. I think boxers are becoming more aware that it's not a good career to be in for a long time and enjoy the money and wealth you have. So I kind of get it from that side, but I think it's also, this translates to every boxer, and what it means for the fans is that everybody is there to cash out. Everybody's there to take an easy path. Everybody's there to make as much money as possible. Nobody's there to take risks. Nobody's there to entertain fans.
Yeah. What do you think about Joshua as a person in general? Because we know about certain stories that have been shelved, don't we, about him? A week before he fought Povetkin, we know that he got carjacked. He had his watch took, didn't he, in Battersea?
Yeah.
We had a photograph of the watch, didn't we? Remember?
Mm-hmm. No, it's gone though.
No, yeah, but on the back it said, obviously they obviously didn't know what they got, the robbers, did they? Yeah. It said Klitschko versus Joshua April 2017. There were only two in the world. He got one, and Vladimir got one?
Yeah.
350 grand watch. Do you remember when he got that watch dropped off with insurance claim, and the courier recorded the conversation with Joshua, didn't he, at the door? Do you remember?
Yeah.
Well, it's funny actually because there was no mention in any of the press that Joshua were out a week before the Povetkin fight with his boys driving about early hours at morning. There was no mention about that. Well, there was some mention about something to do with your car, a claim, something to do with his car or something. Wasn't there a problem with insurance? It got nicked or something, whatever. But
The car,
no,
the Rolls Royce, yeah.
oh, well, I thought it was a Range Rover.
Really got nicked, didn't it?
Well, the Range Rover got nicked, but nothing was said about the watch, was it? Or it happened at early hours at morning kind of thing. It were all very PR manufactured stuff. That incident doesn't sit well with me. Obviously, he's got a kid to some bird, and that were all hushed up, wasn't it, for a long, long time, wasn't it? He won't admit it and all that carry on. The other stuff with Eddie Chambers and the Robert Mugabe stuff, it's all this Black Lives Matter thing. It all very convenient how they've done it all, isn't it?
Well, it's just British athletes, isn't it? As long as you're on top and as long as you bring in Sky Money, which is a media company owned by Rupert Murdoch, law of the papers owned by Rupert Murdoch, as long as you're a commodity to them, then it's fine, all dandy, but it will all come out in the wash. I mean, that's just how it works. Like, you can look at most footballers after their career, it all comes out like what their lies were. Look at Joe Calzaghe after his career, everything that came out. I mean, look, I don't know Joshua personally. I know a lot of people that know him and work with him. Everybody has good things to say about him. But generally, he's just a young kid, isn't he? He's just a kid. He's made some silly mistakes. He's behaved not in a great way on occasions, but he isn't a saint that he's been portrayed in the media. And I think part of the reason why you need to portray him as a saint is for all these endorsement deals.
Yeah.
Look at Shannon Courtney, right? I mean, she's not anymore working with Adidas, to my understanding. But she's expandable. Matchroom aren't going to put their muscle behind supporting her or protecting her image because she doesn't make them any money.
They threw her to Wolves, didn't they, when that came out, didn't it?
Oh, they didn't do much, but she didn't handle it well either. But look at Tyson Fury, right? He's been he's been sort of rejuvenated and he's got this new image and this mental health stuff. I mean, less said about that, the better. But, we all forget, people and the public and the media have short memories when it serves a purpose. Now he's on every TV channel going and a regular on Good Morning Britain. So there's no reason to stick a boot in him at the moment.
Yeah. All right, then. Moving on. Would we respect Eddie Hearn more if him and Josh Warrington's team as a whole, collectively, came out and said, look, we got it all wrong. We've get belt up. We've just beat somebody and we've been beat. They got it wrong. I mean, the fight with Builders a knockover job, but it weren't like that, was it, really?
No, I mean, I think Joe Gallagher tweeted very well, was it over the weekend, that one of the problems with fighting against Mexican or American fighters at the moment is that it's very hard to get sparring in the UK for them, particularly when there's a pandemic, you can't fly people over. So I think everything was wrong from the outset. Anybody with two eyes and any understanding of boxing can see that. Like accepting a match at such short notice or fight at such short notice against a Mexican guy that had been on a knockout streak, had a few losses. Also just giving up the belt, which never sits well with me, particularly if you're going to have to defend against somebody that you've already had a close fight with. If he was confident of his win and confident that he could beat him, then he should have just taken the rematch. I think I'd certainly give them more respect, but it's not for his team necessarily to come out and say that, but for Eddie, certainly, yes. I mean, he spent an hour a week talking to Coogan about what's going on in boxing, but everything's hunky-dory in the Matchroom stable, whereas everybody else he can point faults at. If Josh was still with Frank Warren, I guarantee that Eddie would be saying what a bad move that would be, or what a bad move that was.
Yeah, you're probably right there. You're probably right. We'll get back to. In fact, speaking of Josh Warrington, we'll talk about the fight actually in Eddie's show there. What did you think about Josh's performance as a whole against Lara?
I think he looked flat from the outset. I don't think the tactics were right. He sort of came out thinking that he could knock him out without being a big puncher. He obviously got clipped quite early a few times, and I think he felt the power. But despite that, he probably thought that Lara would wane and just wouldn't have the power to carry on. And he made mistakes. It wasn't the performance of a guy that's been out of the ring for, 18 months. It just wasn't, the tactics didn't really work, regardless of who you're facing. I mean, you want to sort of feel this guy out. You don't know anything about him. But I didn't think he performed well. I don't know what the reasons for that were. Sometimes fighters become old overnight. Josh's style doesn't really lend itself well to a long career. And also the inactivity doesn't help his style. Like, he needs to be active, he needs to be in the gym, he needs to be in hard sparring. He needs to be focused on things rather than just being inactive for so long. And he was sort of caught cold. But I mean, credit to Lara as well. You can't just say it was Josh that didn't fight well. I mean, Lara is clearly a decent fighter.
Yeah, he was decent. I thought inactivity cost him, because you can't keep your tools sharp, can you? If you're not going to be fighting for a year, 18 months, your tools are not sharp. No matter if you're doing your camp and all that, it's still not the same as fighting regular, is it?
No. I mean, there's no substitute for actually being in the ring, is there? And even sparring to an extent, you can do that, but you're sparring with the same guys you're always sparring with, aren't you?
Yeah, how can I explain it? For me, like, he didn't do enough, right? He didn't look same fighter. He looked He reminded me a little bit of Froch when he fought Groves first time.
Yeah,
you know that kind of thing, like.
Mm.
You know, a bit disinterested and didn't really treat the fight serious. I don't know. There's all that talk going on about fighting Kanzu and Gary Russell Jr. and things like that. And you can take your eye off ball, can't you? It's a lot of it's mental, isn't it? I think.
It probably is, and also it doesn't help when everybody's telling you that this guy's a knockover job. It sort of sinks into your subconsciousness.
Well, that's what we were told, weren't we?
Yeah. Well, we were told that he was dangerous, and then we were told during the fight that it's going to be an easy win, and then suddenly we're told that this guy's a killer and there's something wrong with Josh. But it's funny, every time a British boxer loses, something's wrong with them, whether that be Joshua, whether that be Josh Warrington, whether that be anybody else. If they lose an easy fight, there's always something wrong with the fighter rather than the opponent just being better on the night.
What did you think about the commentary from Bean and Co? Because I heard him going on about his stamp collection.
Yeah, I mean, that's crucial information for every single fan watching that fight at that particular point, because that's a trivia question. That's not boxing insight.
Trivial Pursuit.
Yeah, the Bean Pursuit.
Do you think now it's a bit of a tired old format, what they've got going at Sky now on punditry?
Yeah, I mean, I've said it many times before, and you've said it a million times. It's sort of, I think one of the worst things on the punditry on the night was the Zelfa Barra fight, where they were saying halfway through that, oh, you know, Zelfa's needs to do more to win. We haven't given him rounds, and you had Kiko Martinez ahead by loads of rounds, and then about 2 rounds or 1 round before the end of the fight, they're telling us that it's going to be a draw if Zelfa wins, and they can see it as a draw. Whereas nobody apart from the judges and potentially the commentary were priming us for a draw or Zelfa win, you know, worst case scenario. But I don't know what they watch. They're trying to convince us that our own eyes aren't seeing what they are.
Yeah. So Josh Warrington, he's give his IBF belt up. He's give his belt up. He's then gone and got knocked out. It wasn't just a knockdown; it was a beatdown, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was one of those that takes years off your career, as they say.
What do you think about the story doing the rounds from the chosen few that the judges had Warrington 2 rounds up at the time of stoppage. What do you think about that?
Doesn't surprise me. I mean, look at the Zelfa Barrett card. I mean, it's British judging, right? There's no way a house fight is ever going to lose the fight, and it speaks to the fact that there's clear corruption in the British Boxing Board of Control and the judges. Whether that's sort of implicit or whether that's actually agreed is another matter. But I imagine all of them know that if they want to keep their jobs, they better score it for the home fighter. And there's no point in Eddie Hearn coming out and telling us that the judging's bad. It's every time on his show.
What do you think about the Zelfa Barrett Kiko Martinez fight?
I think it was quite similar to Ronnie Clark's Zelfa Barrett fight, where Zelfa Barrett couldn't deal with somebody coming forward and throwing lots of punches. Zelfa's a flashy boxer. I'd say he's a bit of a flat track bully, in the sense that if there's a guy that's weaker than him in front of him, that's not throwing much back, that's afraid of his power, he enjoys unloading those uppercuts and flashy shots on them. But Kiko just came forward and won that quite convincingly.
Smashed him up, Kiko, didn't he?
Yeah, there's no ways of saying that Zelfa won that. I couldn't really give Zelfa many rounds at all.
Or as Terry would say, put hands on him.
Yes.
Big shout out to the Beautiful Boxing Podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts from our good friend Terry Chappendama. All right, then, Rico. Other fights on the night. What were the other fight that caught my eye? Dalton Smith. He won, didn't he?
He's a talented kid. Good fighter. But let's see again, like, where does the matching go? Do they match them easy now and then they face the next Kiko and then they're in trouble? Like, this British matching is just, or matchroom cards in particular, is just terrible.
Opie Price won.
Yeah, another guy that was there meant to win. I mean, look, I'm not going to be judging these fighters until they face a live opponent, somebody they meant to lose to, or somebody that's meant to give them a tough fight.
What do you think about the whisper around the gyms in this area that if Opie Price don't win a British title or move on with his career, that they say a lot of people in industry, especially around here, are saying that Dave Caldwell has been found out if he doesn't do anything with him, because he's the first one that he's technically really had from the beginning, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, he's a good kid, what he's got, isn't he? We're not saying
he's a good kid, but look, you can judge a trainer by the end of their career generally. I think with somebody like Opie Price, you can get them British title, you just match them correctly and you wait for the right fight. So so much of boxing is about the matching and the circumstances, but he's got all the tools, so we expect Dave Caldwell to be able to do a good job with him, or at least get him on that world title scene.
Yeah, I agree. Moving on from that show, let's move on to Eddie's opponents that he fought in 1991.
Yes.
What did you think to that and all the build-up?
Wow, I mean, that's all I can say. Wasn't it meant to be 4 fights, 3 by the way off? Then it was 2 skill bouts.
We know result, because they don't have a result, do they? At end, do they?
Yeah, he turned up to the German suddenly. He's fighting against this guy. Like, I was asking Terry about this, and you train for months before you fight, so surely would have seen some footage. Surely lots more people would have known about this. It's just all this narrative, isn't there?
If I go up to
we have a promoter. Listen, we have a promoter doing an interview about their own career on a boxing channel. I mean, come on. Is this the Eddie Hearn show?
It's come out from Eric Guy that Eddie had 2 fights, but they weren't fights. They were like something before these gym show things happened.
Yeah.
I don't even think they were skill bouts. They were just like 2 little move arounds. For example, if I go up to Clinton Woods gym on a Saturday morning, right, and obviously, and I get it ring with Clinton, I say, come on, Clinton, let's have a little bit of a move around. Can I go running about then saying that I've fought Clinton Woods?
Yeah, sure.
Hey?
Yeah,
Also,
sure. Why not?
I don't get that. But Eric Guy told somebody that we know, and you know one about, and he said, look, obviously he used to work for Matchroom, so he's not going to go heavy on him, is he?
No.
He said, look, they want 4 fights. There were 2 sort of skill bout move around sort of things, but they're doing a winner. It's just they have like 2 1-minute things, don't they? And I don't know. Eddie turned up, didn't he? You can imagine little Edward turning up in his Billy Ricky shorts. Bless him. Hope you're all right, Eddie. Good evening.
What's a chauffeur taking him there?
Grant gloves on and everything. Headgear. Steady on, boys. I've got a fight to win. Oh my God. When he said that and that guy come out with it, Eddie went red. He was so embarrassed. If a big hole could have swallowed him up. He went really red and they never spoke about the fight or what Eddie's footwork were like because there's no to talk about if they're into fight, is there?
No, I think, well, this just epitomises the fact that we've got a circus around boxing that has nothing to do with the boxing, right? This is a bigger story than most of the fights that are coming up. There's nothing happening on the British boxing scene that we can be particularly excited about. So we're focusing on all the sort of ancillary stuff that's happening outside of the ring and the circus and this promise of the Fury against Joshua fight that's been promised about 12 months ago. And the deal was done and Daniel Kinahan and everything's been focused upon apart from what's happening in the ring.
Is the fight done, yes or no?
No.
Is it announced?
No.
Has Tyson Fury put 2.5 stone on over Christmas? Yeah.
Well, judging by the photos, yes.
So Tyson's not in shape. Joshua's saying he's in shape and he's in gym all over. Eddie says it's 95% done. Aram says it's done. Everybody says it's done. But yet Fury's not fighting. Joshua's not fighting. Wilder's not fighting. None of them are fighting top dogs. And why? I'll tell you why. Because they're going to court. They're tied up in legal issues, aren't they, with Wilder and all that carry on. You don't think Al Heyman's going to let this fight go on, do you?
No.
Come on.
Not without getting a slice of the pie.
There you go. They're going to have to come to the table and look after them. But all right, then. Let's have a look here. Eddie going on about for the last few years how he's been more focused on delivering title fights for his fighters rather than the fights. But statistics prove that he hasn't been doing that. If you look through the levels, Conor Benn and Josh Kelly, they've not fought for the British. Joshua's not defending his WBO against Usyk, who's his mandatory, am I right? They don't want that fight. They're trying to palm them off with some interim fight, aren't they? Now, Eddie's now saying it's about the fights. Well, why don't Joshua get all them belts then and throw them in bin and just get at it with Fury? And then it takes away paying fees because they're going to pay about $1.5 million to all sanctioning bodies. That's 750 grand for each fighter more they'll have. Now, why don't they just do that? Bin the belts, get at it. If you've got to have 2 fights, have 2 because it's like you'd make a 2-fight deal anyway, wouldn't you? Well, why would you though? You don't know what the first one's going to be. So why make 2 and be greedy? And why charge us 40 quid? What do you think to that, Rico?
I think Dillian White's the answer to that. I mean, he's had Dillian White for a long time now. He's been at the fringe world level. He hasn't fought for a world title. In general, if you're delivering good fights, you're delivering title fights because that's how boxing should work. So the better the title fight, the better the fight. So if you're delivering Dillian White a Wilder fight or a Joshua rematch, then you are delivering title fights and a good fight. But if you're delivering Dillian White against Povetkin, which is a nothing fight, Dillian White against Chisora, which is a nothing fight, too many of these fights are driven by the narratives rather than leading to a title or actually being for a title.
Yeah, and another thing as well. Want Tony Bellew given the opportunity to put his WBC belt in a tournament?
Yeah.
And what did they ended up parking him up as a champion Everest, and Usyk ended up doing the business, didn't he? Is that right? Something
Yep.
like that.
Yep.
So where were Eddie concentrating mainly on titles then? He weren't, because he put Bellew in with Hay with no belts online. Dylan White's on his 6th pay-per-view in a couple of weeks. He's not even fought for a European title yet, never mind a world title. So
Even guys like Buatsi, right? I mean, Buatsi's beaten guys, but he hasn't actually fought for anything, has he?
He's just
like
not
anything. I mean, I think he's won a British, right? He beat Kieran Conway for that, if I remember correctly. But again, it's like we're talking about an Olympian. In the same time Teofimo Lopez has turned pro, he's won titles, he's beat Lomachenko, and Buatsi's still fighting against fringe world level guys.
All right, then what about what about Buatsi knocking back a Bivol world title fight against Bivol?
Well, these are guys in his stable. Look at all the super middleweights that he's had, like John Ryder, Callum Smith, Billy Joe Saunders, Andrade, all these other guys, well, around that super middleweight division, but they're not fighting against each other. So what are you delivering us?
Exactly. And like I said, Conor Benn and Josh Kelly have not fought for a British yet.
Fight against each other. I mean, that's the thing.
Yeah. Does Dylan White get iced against Povetkin?
No, I don't think so. I mean, my opinion in the first fight was that Dillian White walks all over him, and I think he'll do that this time around. He just got caught with shots, shot from the heavens, as they call it. But he got caught. You know, he's not a great fighter, but I just think he's too young, he's too fresh. He'll beat him.
Will Robert Smith make these judges accountable? Because Eddie says he wants action against judges. Well, I've got a theory for that, and I think these judges, to put them into place, Eddie needs to take the shows and put them on in America, because it takes the British Boxing Board of control out the equation. There's no fans anyway in England, so just take them out of the jurisdiction. Make the board suffer that way until they retrain these judges, or they flush them out if they're corrupt or incompetent. It's one of them, isn't it?
If there was no social media and there was no social media outrage, what would be the incentive for Eddie to deal with these judges?
Nothing.
Because they want to benefit his fighters, right?
Wouldn't say a word.
No. And also the other thing is, look, we know these judges are corrupt because if they were incompetent, they would sometimes rule against the away. They'd sometimes rule the fighter for the away fighter, not just the home fighter. Isn't that logical, right?
Yeah. Yeah. All right then. I agree. Tony Bellew's come out and he said that if Sky want him to be a ringside expert analysis in future, they need to make sure that it's not against somebody who he knows who's fighting. What do you think to that?
I mean, look, it's your job, right? If you're prosecuting a court and somebody you know is being prosecuted, you'd still do the job. If you're a traffic warden, it's your mate's car. Well, I probably wouldn't give them a ticket, but you get what I'm saying, right? It's not, if his job's to be an analyst, then he needs to do that job. It's not like Andre Ward and Tim Bradley in the US who are on top ranked shows. I'm sure they know a lot of the guys they analyzing there. And Sky's like a big family, isn't it? They all sit in that bubble together. They all chummy together. You know, what show can we put him on? Foreign fighters?
Yeah, interesting.
It's not professional. I mean, look at Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher. Yes, they support their own teams and they're passionate, but they'll also tell us what they think and they'll also be critical, and that's why they're employed. Why should boxing be any different?
Yeah, I mean, Graham Souness were critical about Liverpool's defence. You know, they've got 3 or 4 defenders out, haven't they? They've got midfielders as defenders. So he's been critical, even though he's ex-Liverpool. But you don't get that in boxing. Everybody goes out to bat for the pal, don't they?
It's because of people that, Adam Smith is too close for Eddie, so he's not objective in his appointments of things. So on the football front, you don't have the football team being pally with every owner and manager of every club, do you? Their
Yeah.
job is there to be objective and, to bring, they serving the customers who are the viewers, not the promoters, whereas Adam Smith is serving the promoter mainly.
Yeah, I agree. Jerome Wilson suing Dave Caldwell and Boxing Board of Control, I've been told, for negligence. What do you think to that?
I mean, I know about the incident. I don't know what he's specifically suing them about, but I think the board has a pretty bad track record of dealing with incidents like this. What happened to him was very unfortunate, but yeah, the board has a pretty bad track record. Um, if if legal suits like Michael Watson and others don't make the board change, then what will? But I hope if he's suing them, I hope he's you know benefits the sport by doing the right, benefits the sport by actually advancing and it not happening to other people.
Do we feel a bit sorry for Dave Caldwell caught in the middle of this because the fighter, he's obviously done all the check weigh-ins, so if they've all been passed, he's signed the form before he gets in the ring. You can see where Caldwell's coming from. When he's covered, he's done not wrong. It's just unfortunate, isn't it? But we don't know what's led up to that. If he's been saying to his team, I don't feel right, or if there's any text message or any correspondence, we're not privy to all that. So we can't, it wouldn't be going all the way if the kid had a weak case, would it?
No, and also, look, he's suing Dave Caldwell for a reason. So he believes that why he's suing Dave Caldwell is legitimate, that he didn't look after him. I don't know whether that's true or not, but, you hope that, look, I just hope that the right outcome happens. That's the main thing. I don't hope that Dave gets protected. I don't hope that Jerome wins or loses. I just hope that it's investigated and it doesn't happen in sport going forward.
You know what I hope for, Rico? I want to read all juicy bits in Sunday papers. I want to know what's been said and who's done what, and that's what I want to see.
I'm surprised you haven't framed that photo of Barry Hearn and Steve Collins, that court case, all that stuff.
If anybody wants to know about court cases, go and Google Barry Hearn versus Steve Collins court transcripts. It's all on Google. Go read about it and do your own work before you start throwing mud at me in emails. And then you might understand what goes on in the sport of boxing. Right. Does Billy Joe Saunders Canelo happen in May? I'm hearing not.
I mean,
it's not done. It's not a done deal yet, and we're middle of Feb, aren't we now? Is it 18th of Feb today? 17.
Has the Yildirim fight been announced?
I think it has, yeah. It's this month, isn't it?
Yeah.
End
so
of month.
Think after that fight, they'll announce the Billy Joe Saunders fight.
Well, let's hope they do, because time's marching on, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, look, we hope that Billy Joe Saunders gets his fight, just because it's a fight that we've been waiting for the last 4 or 5 years, and we don't know what Billy Joe Saunders' level is.
No. Ring Magazine Fight at Year for females. Terry Harper against Natasha Jonas. Sky and Matchroom say nobody's interested in the rematch, but it's Ring Magazine Female Fight at Year. What do you think to that? It's an easy one to make. They're both from the same stable. Trainers are from South Yorkshire and Lancashire. An offer were put to Jonas that were less than what she got first time. What do you think about it? Do you think that they're not interested in it? Steffi Bull and Eddie Hearn, they just want to keep milking Harper gravy train? Or are they going to wait while Natasha Jonas gets old? What do you think, Rico?
I think it's a bit of both. I mean, look, it's a fight that Natasha Jonas could easily win, as she won the first fight, in my opinion. So Terry Harper in her Sky commercials, LGBTQ icon, the nice story of the chippy lady turned boxer. That's really what they're interested in. Natasha Jonas is too much of a threat, and also I don't think they'd sort of promote her with the same vigor they promoted Terry Harper with. So I think they just want to keep the show rolling, and that's what boxing has become, just keep the cash cows milking.
All right. I know you're an Anthony Tomlinson fanboy. He's been offered a British title eliminator for welterweight against Croker. I think he's from Ireland, but it's been like a week now, and there's nothing on his social media, nothing been said. The silence is deafening. So, what do you think's going on there?
Who's his new team now? I know he's changed gym, right? But who's managing him these days?
Well, he's training with Roger Sampson
Yeah.
in Sheffield. He's back with Roger. We're with him as an amateur. He's not with Bullcroft no more.
No, he isn't.
I've heard a little whisper that he might be with Dennis, but they haven't announced it. So I don't know. Is it a good match? Well, Dennis is based in Sheffield, isn't he? Anthony's from Sheffield, so that might be a good match. But if he's with Dennis, why is the note coming out? And why aren't they acting on this British title elimination? I mean, Anthony Tomlinson told me at a Mick Whale gym, I said, would you fight Conor Benn? He said, I'll fight anybody, Porky. So I said, okay, well, you've got a British title eliminator here against Croker, but we're not as quiet as a mouse. So I think he probably beats Croker, but I don't know if he's knee-deep in legal issues or if he's with Dennis and Dennis has said, oh, don't get airtime yet. We've got something better for you planned. I don't know, but I can imagine conversation he's probably had with Dennis. It'd have been something like, how are you doing? Nice to see you. Just touching down with you. I've got something bubbling. We'll go a different route. IBO. Get rid of British. We don't want that IBO menus. And I'll make you face of Eurosport. It'd have been something along them lines, wouldn't it?
Possibly, yeah. I think it really depends on who his new management is and what they've got planned for him. So it's hard. If it is, hypothetically, if he's somebody like MTK, then it makes sense for him to fight for the British. If it's other managers and they've got other networks and other they've got other links to other platforms, then you need to work that way. Boxing has become, it's not even about titles anymore, which is sad. It's become sort of this game of snakes and ladders where you need to choose the right network and then you just need to work your way up through that network because you can't really work across BT and Sky, can you?
Yeah. Will MTK even be around in 12 months from now? Because the mainstream media are all over him again this morning. It's every day now, isn't it?
I mean, look, that's the British Boxing Board of Control's decision, and I can't see them doing anything. But on the other hand, it's not like Kinahan's charge of anything, and he's not officially involved with the business. So, look, I think we're MTK, right? Most people in boxing say, and most boxers that work for them say they're good for boxing. So you do hope they're around. With the other issues pending in the background, those might get resolved. The main threat for MTK is that some MP picks it up as their hobby horse, or somebody starts really putting the pressure on Sky and BT not to have MTK fighters on shows, and then that sort of kills their business model because they can't really advance these guys.
I was talking to somebody this morning, and he said to me, Tyson Fury's not giving airtime, has he? He keeps being asked for quotes. He won't comment, will he? All right.
No.
But he was the one that let the cat out of the bag last June, when he's saying, well done, Daniel Kinnan, on making the fight. That was 9 months ago. This fight's still not made. So he probably opened his mouth then and probably thought it's best I keep my pie hole shut. Well, Eddie Hearn's giving it airtime all the time. I don't think Eddie Hearn wants MTK about me, personally. I don't. I think he sees them as a threat.
I think he does, yeah. He does see them as a threat to an extent. But it's also easier to deal with one management company or multiple fighters than deal with multiple managers with different agendas. And the other thing, I think the biggest threat for Matchroom with MTK is the fact that MTK can eat into their slots. But I think it becomes harder for Sky to air pure MTK shows, given the documentaries and the coverage, until there's something is resolved or some situation comes to an head. And I think the reason why Eddie probably gives the airtime is because the more airtime he gives to it, the more it's sort of to say to Sky, you'd rather just work with me and I can work with their fighters rather than working directly with MTK.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think that for me, look, Eddie wants to run the sport, doesn't he? MTK, they're a challenge to him, mate. Trust me. So he's going to get as much airtime as he wants. He's not going to keep his pie all shut. Whereas Fury's a bit more cuter now, and he's like, he won't answer, give airtime. Whereas Billy Joe, Spencer Fearon, and people like that, they keep giving it airtime every day, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, but that's to advance their own egos and platform. If you think about it this way, if MTK were to say, Bob Arum were to say, I'm going to launch Top Rank in the UK, I have a load of MTK fighters signed on Top Rank. We're going to do a deal with ITV. What would Sky have left if all the MTK fighters jump ship onto this new platform? And what would Matchroom have?
Not many.
No. And I think that's the existential threat for Sky Sports, isn't it? Well, Matchroom, not Sky Sports.
Would you put it past Al Heyman making a big play in UK with ITV?
The thing is, the UK doesn't. So Al Heyman, if you look at his fighters in the US, they quite concentrated in certain weight divisions, and that's how he's done his business. So he obviously has the odd guy like Wilder heavyweight, but a lot of them are at that 147, 152, that sort of mark. And he's signed a lot of other guys in the lower weight divisions, and they fight against each other. In the UK, if you're going to make a play, you'd want to have like 10, 15 fighters from the same weight class, and they'd just fight amongst each other and maybe fight against the American guys that would match sort of those weight divisions. And the UK doesn't have many strong weight divisions globally. Like we used to have super middleweights when we had Froch, Groves, De Gale, others coming through like Callum Smith and others, whereas now we've just got somebody like Josh Taylor at 140, but then there's nobody else at 140, is there?
No. All right, then. I'll just throw a few fights here and see what you think. Just give me an answer who you think wins. Liam Williams against Andrade.
Andrade.
Callum Smith against Boatsi.
Callum Smith.
Callum Johnson against Yard.
Johnson.
Beefy Smith against Eubank Jr.
Beefy Smith.
Billy Joe Canelo.
Canelo.
Billy Joe Ryder 2.
Billy Joe.
Billy Joe Eubank 2.
Billy Joe.
Joyce Usyk.
Usyk.
Dylan White Povetkin 2.
Dylan White.
Fitzy against Fowler 2.
Probably Fowler at this stage.
Eddie Hearn against Frank Warren.
You know what? You probably have to say Frank Warren.
We'll go with Brick.
Although Eddie has an undefeated record, but I think you'd probably have to say Bricktop.
Bricktop's going to win that one, isn't he?
Eddie's going to try and negotiate his way out of the fight. He's the guy on the playground that runs their mouth to everybody, and then somebody says, all right, let's have a fight. And they're like, no, I didn't mean it that way, mate. That's the guy.
Apples and pears. Cheeky Nando's, plot up, caked. All that Essex crap that he taught will be caked in 6 months. Caked, yeah. You know why people say, okay, you got it in for Eddie Hearn. Do you know why I've got it for Eddie? And I know all these gimps are watching this. Let me tell you this. Don't bring books out called Relentless when you've had everything on your lap since you've been a little boy, little Lord Fauntleroy. How can you be relentless? Frank Warren's been shot at, has been bankrupt God knows how many times, and all Eddie does is get people to put Frank's financials out on Twitter all the time, doesn't he? We know.
Yeah, how many... what do you think, if the book was called something else, what would be your view on it? If it wasn't called Relentless?
Look, I don't hammer Eddie all the time. People might say you do. I don't know. He's an hard worker, right? But he's totally in love with his son. If he were a bar of chocolate, he'd eat himself, wouldn't he? He injects himself into every trending story. If somebody famous dies, Eddie has to put it on social media, doesn't he? About how he knew him, or he has to put something out there to be seen to be doing the PR thing. Look, it's his job, isn't it? But it rubs people up the wrong way because
I was going to use the same word. It robs. We saw what happened in the US. He got run out of there, right?
you know barbershop conversations. They're not even allowed a press pass, are they, for DAZN shows, right?
Nope.
Bit like me with matchroom shows, but who cares? Well, I care because I go on about it. But
why don't you apply? Why don't you apply for a press pass and then he can put the rejection up? Why don't we do
Riku,
that?
you remember, right, when who was the guy who owned Boxing Social to start with?
Neil Kettleborough.
Yeah, you were there that after party.
Yeah.
Who could have done the job from the beginning? Me. What did I say? I don't think I could traipse up and down the country for £500 a week and a train pass. I don't think I could do it, mate. I'm an home bird, me. I like to be at home. I like to be laid on my big bed, telly on, beers next to me, licorice all sorts, and what else were next to bed? You know, I'm happy, aren't I? If I can do that, I'm happy. See me kids when I want. Look, I'm happy doing that. I couldn't be traipsing around country. When I did that show, I did some PR stuff for Dennis or some. Terry were there, wasn't he? Remember we did them interviews at that show? Did you were there?
Yeah. The interviews afterwards.
I
don't think I came to that show, but yeah, I do remember that. When you
you were there, mate. You were there.
Was it?
I swear to God. Afterward, you stopped at Hilton.
Yes.
Afterwards, my shirt was wet through because it's all right me having crack with you here, but when you've had a drink and whatnot, and you're in an arena and you've got stuff like this in background and it's filming and there's noise and all that, and you got to do a script to plan it. It's like work, isn't it? You can't you can't enjoy yourself.
Yeah, you have to concentrate.
Whereas here, I'm in my element here because I couldn't do this in front of hundreds of people. I feel confident sat here. It's just like I'm having crack with you, like we're stood in a pub or a cafe. But that to me it seemed like hard work, and you're doing a few interviews here, there, and everywhere. And I just thought, what am I doing here, chasing about here? I went back to one after party at a casino where Dennis had this after party. I had to get changed into some stuff that luckily I had in my car because I was wet through. 3 a.m. Wet through, mate. So it's an hard job, and they've all got an hard job doing that, but it ain't for me that. But I just think that it's an hard job, mate. I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, look, it's a hard job. I think the other thing that makes it hard is the jostling with other sort of videographers or boxing channels to try and get the interviews. You're there queuing up to, in the changing room to try and get your 5 minutes thing, and you might queue there for half an hour, and then that somebody from the fighters team says, no, we don't want to interview you guys, or that's it for the day. And you get back to your hotel room, you're editing in the middle of the night to try and get you out. It's not for everyone, right? But they bring us content, so good on them for doing it, but it's not for everyone.
All right.
I think on that note, might try and get some lunch before my next.
All right then, mate. No problem. Well, listen, we've had a good chat. I hope you are. Have you got any? There you go on. Sorry.
Speak maybe after the Avanesi and Kelly fight.
Yeah, we'll have a better chat at weekend. I just wanted to ask you.
Go for it.
Who you think is going to win, Kelly or Evanesian this weekend?
Evanesian. I mean, Kelly couldn't beat Ray Robinson's son, could he?
Could there be a robbery in store for us on points?
I don't think after last weekend they won't be as audacious.
All right.
But we don't know. I mean, look, if it's a close fight, Kelly's going to win, but I just don't think it's going to be a close fight. I don't rate Kelly.
If Evanesian gets knocked out, will people be saying to Evanesian and Neil Marsh that they should go to Adam Boo? He's the best. Will they be saying that?
I'm surprised that people didn't tell that to Warrington.
Yeah, probably already have done behind the scenes. So go to Adam Boo. Actually, I quite like Adam Boo. He's quite funny. But every time somebody gets beat, he's always wheeled out, isn't he?
I mean, if people listen to social media, you'd have every boxer in this country that isn't undefeated.
Yeah. So, all right then. Well, listen. Thanks for coming on, young man.
Pleasure.
Have a good day.
Mate.
Take care.
Right. Take care.
Good,
Cheers.
mate.
Thank you everyone for watching. Subscribe.
Yeah, subscribe. Well, that was my good friend Riku. Go to Riku. He's the best. Sorry about that. And on that note, I am off to Dawn's Sewing Rooms in Mexborough to collect my shirt. So I've had some buttons fitted on it. Change colour. Now that I can get in it. So 1:30 on a Wednesday. Might go get a shake then. So thanks for tuning in and watching. I'm going to send this for an intro and an ending. Stick sponsors on it and that, and I'll get Jab Apparel to do me a thumbnail. And I think that's about it for today. Wednesday, we always toss it off on a Wednesday because we are tossers. All right, so thank you for liking and subscribing and leaving a comment. If you want to come on the channel, it's porkycorner@mail.com. And if you've got a complaint about Sky, it's viewer, VIEWER, and then capital R @sky.uk. If you're unhappy with Sky Sports product that they're serving us, feel free to email them, but don't email me if you're unhappy. Email Sky, all right? And address it to Ed Robinson and Bean. Peace out.
You like that one, didn't you? Right, first of all, I just want to say thank you very much for liking and subscribing. It means a lot to me because we're on this journey together, aren't we? So anybody got any ideas for the channel, fire them over to me, porkycorner@mail.com. All right. Shout out to Innovation Alloys and South Yorkshire Packaging. All right. Don't forget to subscribe. Keep on trucking.